Hey guys, this is Austin. If you're really into smartphones, you've probably heard of the LG V series of phones. However, this year they're doing something a little different. This is a pre-production model of the LG V30. Pre-production is a key word here, as LG sent out an early version of the V30 to take a look at. So some things will definitely change, most notably a lot of the software stuff, but it should give us a good look at what the phone will be like once it actually hits shelves. Put the V30 side by side with the G6 as well as the S8, and it's actually a pretty big jump in design. So not only does it have smaller bezels than the G6, but it also is a little bit more curved both on the edges as well as on the sides of the display, very much similar to what Samsung is doing with the S8. The V30 is rocking a 6-inch 2880 by 1440p OLED display. Now Samsung has kind of been on top of the smartphone screen game for a couple years, but the V30 is right there, which makes sense. LG has been making OLED TVs for a few years, so it's only natural for that tech to trickle down to the V30.
Hey guys, this is Austin. Today I'm here in New York City for the launch of the new Samsung Galaxy Note 8.
While the speaker isn't exactly amazing, it's just a single one on the bottom of the device, the screen really does look nice. So the only issue here is that because this is a smartphone in 2017 with essentially no bezels, it's actually a slightly awkward looking 18:9 aspect ratio. For most content, this is no problem, but when it comes to video, that means you actually have some small black bars on either side of the video. The design looks really nice and also very similar to the Galaxy Note 8. That is certainly not a bad thing. So this guy is rocking an all glass and metal build with Gorilla Glass 5 on front and back, but what it doesn't have is a stupidly placed fingerprint sensor. It's right here in the middle and it doubles as the power button. Good job, LG. It also has IP68 water resistance, which means that it should be able to survive in 1.5 meters of water for up to 30 minutes. Just like the Galaxy S8, the iPhone 7, it's a fairly standard spec on smartphones these days, but it's something that you really should expect when you're paying this much for a phone. Not only does it have a USB-C port as well as the speaker on the bottom, but importantly, it also has a headphone jack on top. Spec-wise, it's exactly what you would expect out of a 2017 flagship. So it's rocking a Snapdragon 835 processor, 4 GB of RAM, either 64 or 128 gigs of storage, and that is backed up with a micro SD card slot. The only thing that's a little bit of an unknown right now is the battery life. So to be fair, it has a pretty decently sized 3300 mAh battery, right in there with stuff like the Galaxy Note 8 as well as the S8 Plus. However, because this is pre-production, it's hard to say too much about that just yet. Now for someone who has a lot more perspective on the V30 is Wes, our resident cinematographer and colorist, which sounds super cool. So you've been playing with the V30, but you actually have experience with the earlier V series phones.
Yeah, I've actually been on that gravy train since the V10. What initially kind of drew me to the V series is it's definitely a little more utilitarian.
Yeah.
And for me, as someone that like when I'm out on the field, like on a set, I like the idea of I just carry a second battery. I swap it and I go.
Have you listened to the headphone jack yet? Dude, that is legitimately really impressive. So, come down. You actually had to turn on the DAC. We were testing it yesterday. We did not do that.
Yeah, so there's actually a hi-fi quad DAC option that enables.
What if you disable it? What happens?
It just becomes a little quieter, a little flatter. I don't know. That's why I can't go away from having a headphone jack.
Yeah.
For me, I just really love music and. Having that sort of quality just like in my pocket, like even if I'm in an airport or something, just putting in my earbuds and pumping something like that, it's just cool.
As far as the cameras go, LG was one of the first to embrace dual cameras, and the V30 is no exception. So in addition to a 16 megapixel standard shooter, it also has a 13 megapixel wide angle camera. So for example, this is what a standard shot looks like. And then when we switch over to the wide angle camera, you can see that there is a massive difference. Now specifically with the wide angle, on earlier phones like the G5 and the V20, it was not quite as high quality as the main, and you could actually see a pretty big difference in quality. But here, this actually looks pretty good. And honestly, while a lot of dual camera setups are going to be more focused on having like a second telephoto lens, having something that's this wide actually is kind of nice. It does give you a very different perspective. So this is what the standard video looks like on the main camera, but if I jump out to the wide angle, you can see that we're getting a lot more in this shot. In fact, I can get uncomfortably close to Ken here, and it still actually doesn't look crazy. But we get back into the normal shot. It looks really goofy. Something else interesting about the V30 camera is that the main shooter has a pretty large 1.6 aperture. And for comparison, a lot of other smartphones have 1.7 or 1.8 or even 1.9. What this means is that it actually is going to be able to collect more light, which is especially useful in low light situations. So one of the things with the V20 that is a pretty major upgrade are the cameras.
Yeah.
So I played around with them a little bit, but coming from the V20, what do you think?
Just from my initial impressions, they're both better in a bunch of different ways. So with this one, unlike the iPhone, which has like a telephoto, and the standard, this one has basically standard view and a wide angle, which I found to be incredibly useful just because you find yourself in so many neat situations where you're like, I'm in the middle of some cool woods. I just want to take a picture of this. So the raw capture is 10-bit, which actually the V20 was 10-bit as well.
Okay.
But
that's still a lot better than most smartphones, though, if they even have RAW in the first place.
Just from my initial tests, I think the V30 rivals the S8. When you're shooting RAW here, it's going to take a little more monkeying with, but the range that you get versus what I'm seeing you get on the S8, I would say if you are confident going to Photoshop, going to Lightroom, going into DaVinci Resolve, if you're that dedicated, then I think the V30 outshines it a little bit.
One of the big features of the V30 is the improved video performance. It actually added a lot of really cool, sort of more high-end features to it.
Yeah, which kind of the most interesting one to me is it shoots log.
Okay,
which
so
is
log,
weird.
for you guys who are not giant camera nerds, is essentially a more flat picture profile that is sort of meant to be able to kind of allow you in post-production to kind of get the most out of the image.
This is really just refining and making the cameras as good as possible now that they kind of have the form factor and the idea down. They know who they want to be for, and they know kind of the idea that how people like the wide angle and then they like the more of the standard width. So this is really just an improvement on everything.
While this is pre-production, so some things could change between now and release, it is pretty clear to me that the V30 is absolutely up there with other big flagships. So what do you guys think about the LG V30? Let me know in the comments below and I will catch you on the next one.